Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals. So, back in 1997, I discovered one of my favorite Batman series of all time, Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. Even to this day, it's probably one of my favorite Batman lines. Well, pretty much it is. So, I really liked it because it was a very dark take on Batman. He had some cool armor and some cool different variant costumes and stuff like that. I love the giant villains in the set. Like, they actually looked imposing, like they would actually be a threat to Batman. Like Bane was gigantic and muscular, and Scarecrow was very detailed and kind of spooky looking. So I picked up as many as I could. And then, in Toy Fair magazines, I started seeing ads for Series 2, and I looked all over the place for them, but I couldn't find them. And I thought the Joker here looked awesome. He's got a very cool thing going on where he looks like a muscular guy, but you use his his feature, and you pop open the top and you get to see him like holding a Smilex gas explosive. And I discussed these all in my Series 1 and Series 2 reviews, so go check them out. But while I was trying to find Series 2, already in Toy Fair magazine, I started to see ads for Series 3. I was thinking, what the heck is going on here? I can't even find Series 2 and already Series 3 is coming out. And then after that, I was thinking, holy crap. That Man-Bat and Penguin look awesome. Not to mention the very cool underwater Batman and Jungle Robin. He's fine, but Man-Bat and Penguin, holy smokes. I was super excited to pick this line up. And fortunately, I actually did find some of these in Walmart, but still, I never got any until much later whenever I was in college. For whatever reason, but there's a story behind that. We did have a Man-Bat in my home, and I'll explain that once I get into my Man-Bat review here. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about how awesome these villains are real quick. Before I get into the full-on toy review here, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about where these designs probably came from for these characters. In the Series 1 review, I was talking about how I think a lot of inspiration for this line came from the artwork of Kelly Jones. I mean, he draws Batman with like the huge ears and just the very dark appearance overall. I think, like I said, I think this was very inspired from him. And like if you look at Man-Bat here, that face looks very similar to Kelly Jones's Man-Bat. Maybe not necessarily like the physique, but the face is very similar here. Even the Penguin here, I think, is pretty similar to how Kelly Jones was drawing him at the time. The Scarecrow in this line doesn't look anything like any Kelly Jones artwork, so this is like a brand new look for the Scarecrow. I don't know any Scarecrow in any Batman comic that looks similar to this one. So, he's pretty cool and he's pretty original. Like if you look at Kelly Jones' work here in Nightfall, he drew him very similar to this later on when he was actually penciling Batman. I think like proportionately Bane is sort of similar, like because he's just like giant and super muscular, way bigger than the Batman animated series toy that came before this. But in general, I don't know. Obviously Kelly Jones's eyes are a lot different, and he always draws Bane with that like shadow above his mouth that you kind of get with this, but not that much. I don't think the Catwoman in this line is like 100% inspired by Kelly Jones. I have all the Batman Kelly Jones comics from when he started penciling from 515 up to 552, and I don't remember Catwoman ever really appearing in them. I think the suit of this looks sort of similar to Jim Ballen's suit, where you have like most of the body is purple, but you have like the gloves and the boots are black. It kind of reminds me of a mix of that Jim Ballen costume and also Kelly Jones's Catwoman from Batman Bloodstorm, which is the second Batman vampire storyline, where his Catwoman is more of like a werecat, because she's got the long ears, kind of like this mask has, and she even has the tail. Because he has this huge smile, and you can actually see the gums between his teeth and his lips. I also kind of think that looks a lot like how he drew Joker in Batman Bloodstorm. But I still feel like the face on this Joker is more classic Joker than it is Kelly Jones, like his nose and his eyebrows and his hair. Even compared to his later stuff, which would have come out around the time of this toy line, like that face, like his nose is a lot like fatter and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily look like classic Joker, but he still, inside this book, he still kind of has that like mouth like this figure has. I think like the best comparison here is even more so than Kelly Jones. Like, look, this still has like the gums between the teeth and the mouth. I think that like something like this face by Brian Boland Like that looks almost exact like the toy over there. Definitely one of the best looking Jokers of all time. The Clayface in this line looks a lot like Clayface 3, only he's more stylized. The third Clayface was Preston Payne. He had to be in this like suit, this protective suit, because his body was unstable and he'd melt. And if he touched people, then they would melt. And it was pretty cool. Like it's Kelly Jones at this time did not draw him with like this little tiny speaker here, but he even has that speaker there that appeared on Clayface 3 since his other earlier appearances. He doesn't have the bubble over his head, and most of his body is pushed out. So it's very different than like the Matthew Hagen version of Clayface, which is just kind of like a giant mud monster guy. Well, clay, right? So even when Kelly Jones was drawing Clayface without his head being in a bubble, here's his Matt Hagen Clayface, and it's pretty different from that one. So this is a much kind of original Clayface kind of look. And, just looking at all these cool Kelly Jones covers, you think about how awesome it would be to see all these villains in this Legends of the Dark Knight style. But unfortunately, we didn't get any. Like, I would love to see Mr. Zsasz, even though, he's mostly just walks around in his underwear. But, like, that Mr. Freeze was awesome. Black Mask, Killer Croc, and, of course, like, the Riddler. He would have been great, too. Now that we're past all of that, now let's get to the action figure reviews. In Series 2, I began with my favorite figure in that series, which was the Joker. And this one, I'm going to save the best for last. But, that's not a slight against these other three toys. These other three toys are pretty awesome, too. So let's begin with the Penguin. The Penguin, a mutant bird-like human with a mysterious past. The Penguin never ceases to plunder Gotham City of its most precious possessions. His powerful hatred of Batman and Robin is as encompassing as his inconceivable lust for riches. His obsession to neutralize the Dark Knight will never cease until Batman is no longer. The Penguin has power to use Gotham City's vast bird population to aid him in his sinister plans. Though he doesn't necessarily appear dangerous, his looks are deceiving. At his core is the heartless void of one of Gotham City's most ruthless villains. So here's the Penguin, right? First of all, I really like the way this guy looks. I love all the detail on him, and he is completely covered in detail. He only comes with one weapon. He comes with his umbrella. And, first we'll talk about the figure himself, right? So the face, to me, as I showed earlier, looks sort of like kind of reminds me of like Kelly Jones's kind of Penguin look, but it also kind of reminds me a little bit of like, I don't know, we're still kind of like in Batman Returns land at this point in time. It's been about like 5 or 6 years since Batman Returns, but obviously some of the more bird appearance of Tim Burton's Penguin is still going strong in Batman lore, especially like the claws here, his hands. He kind of has like those bird hands that like Penguin has in the movie. But like his face looks really good. Like there's a lot of really cool wrinkles and details on here. The monocle looks very nice in there, and he's got a very cool looking top hat. So once you get past that, like his suit jacket is like amazing. The suit jacket, I'm not sure if it's like he actually sewed like birds together to make this thing, or if it's just supposed to look like a bunch of birds on him, or if it's actually alive birds that are wrapping themselves together to cover him. I don't know what the story is exactly, but it just looks awesome. Like, I like it a lot. Like, there's so much detail in here. Like, you could stare at this and just, like, make out so many cool different birds in here. And, yeah, like, sometimes you get toys like this back in the day where they just really, took it to a step where they were just, like, I could imagine somebody just coming up with this idea in their head, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing idea. Let's, like, make his whole suit jacket look like it's birds and feathers. And, like, you could just run wild with that as, like, a designer. So, compared to the suit jacket, the rest of his suit is pretty tame and normal, but that's fine because you have such a cool looking thing on top. Now, unfortunately, he has very limited articulation, which is kind of a bummer because sometimes, like, when you're trying to get him to pose with his umbrella, you want to be able to put, like, the umbrella in certain spots. But you also have to remember that this was 1997, and back then, like, at most, you mostly only had, like, a shoulder joint, an elbow joint, waist, knee, and like the neck, and that was it. So like this guy has even less than that. He's got, you can move him in the shoulders, you can swivel his waist, but he has no leg articulation. You can move the head, and that's it. You do have this action feature, so this is, but this isn't really part of regular articulation. So that's his action feature, right? You put the umbrella in his hands, and you can extend it, and then look at that. He's twirling his umbrella. I'm gonna block all the water you're spraying at me, underwater Batman. Ah, ha, 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 ha. So, yeah, whatever. So the umbrella itself is actually really cool looking too, because again, they gave it the same kind of detail or texture of like birds lying on top of each other. And it just looks awesome. It's such a cool stylized thing for this penguin. And the back is just kind of like sort of like cross stitching, but kind of not. So you have the like the handle of the umbrella, and it looks kind of like bones put together. And down here, it kind of looks like there's a bird skeleton. Let's see. Can I darken this up? There you go. So it looks almost like a swan or something like that. And you can actually take the umbrella off, and the card says now he can use it as a cane. Oh, Batman, slow down! You can, you know, hit him like an old man. The umbrella serves one last function. You can plug it into his back, and I don't know. Is that supposed to be like an extra shield? Is it supposed to be so that he could kind of like float around on this umbrella? Kind of like they do in the old 60s show? Who knows? But, you know, altogether, this guy's pretty great. I like him a lot. I think he's a pretty cool penguin. This line is known for having like huge, massive villains, and most of them are very tall compared to Batman. And of course, since the penguin is the penguin, he's got to look like a penguin. He's a lot shorter than Batman, but he makes up that like height and massive size by being like super bulky and kind of fat looking. And, you know, so he, even though he's shorter than Batman, he still appears dangerous and intimidating. And, you know, look, he's got this super scary umbrella. Whoa! Up next, you have Jungle Rage Robin. A nameless rogue villain is holding some of Gotham City's most notable citizens in the jungle rainforest arboretum of Gotham Park. Robin is on the scene, and the responsive camouflage technology of his neural suit immediately adapts to his environment, turning him into a fearsome jungle stealth warrior. He becomes almost impossible to see when draped in his cloak. An invisible force able to sneak up on any villain hidden within the foliage. So here's Jungle Rage Robin up close. He has a lot of really cool detail on him and texture that I'll get to in a minute. First, I just want to mention that he comes with 2 accessories, and I'll show those in a little more detail in a little bit. First, you have the battle staff, and then you also have, I assume, is the utility gauntlet. I mean, I don't know if this is you're supposed to pretend this is like wrapped around his arm or what. To me, it just looks like a gun, but okay. All right, so he looks pretty cool. I like the colors on him. He actually looks like the texture on him kind of makes it appear like he's actually part vegetable or like plant or something like that. And you know, on the back of the card it says what an unnamed assailant or foe is like in Gotham City Arboretum. Like, come on, you know that would have to be Poison Ivy, but unfortunately they didn't have Poison Ivy in this line. I mean, Poison Ivy would have been perfect to fight Jungle Rage Robin, but she wasn't in it. Here's a tip for you if you haven't watched my other videos. I try to use a Batman Hush Poison Ivy as my Poison Ivy in my Legends of the Dark Knight display, because she's actually somewhat similar proportions to Batgirl and Catwoman. The biggest difference is her head is a lot larger. Other than that, like the rest of her body is pretty much exactly the same. So the colors, like I said, on him look pretty cool. He also has a mask, and you can take that off and see Robin's face underneath. For whatever reason, this Robin head is a little smaller than the original Robins. I don't know if that's because you have this mask and they had to make it a certain size to fit this mask. I don't know. but I'll show later how he compares to Dive Claw Robin, and he has a small head. So he's got this cool cloth cape that has camouflage all over it. If you take that off, you can see there's a lot of nice detail in his back. You know, I always like it when they actually do something cool with the back and they just don't have it like a flat color. Like, it looks like, you know, they were probably thinking that kids were going to lose that cape and they'd be stuck with this guy. So having like a cool little design on the back is better than just having a regular color. And like I said, there's just really nice texture, like scratched all in him, like little tiny triangles and squares, like all over the place. It looks like his suit is made out of, you know, like a plant stock or something like that. But then you also have, up here, you have this armor, this chest plate here, which is a very cool red, like, hue. And that looks very nice, too. And the R on the chest. You might think, you know, he's got these huge shoulder blades. Those are cool, but I don't know. It kind of looks like he has some leaves attached to his shoulders. But I guess if he's going to be hiding, he might as well try to make himself look like a plant as much as he can. He's got little spikes on the sides of his feet here. Even like the design on his boots is pretty cool. You know, like, it's nothing, it doesn't really necessarily mean anything. He's got like treads on the bottoms of his shoes that are pretty nice. I don't know if that's little robin symbols in his knees. I don't know. It's just a very cool design. Like, I like this. I think this was another cool Robin. It seems like in this line, they did a pretty decent job of actually making Robin, to make him a toy that you would want to buy. Because, you know, sometimes you get Robins and you'd be like, oh, wow, I got a Robin. I wish I got Batman. But I think in this line, a lot of these Robins are like, wow, this Robin's pretty cool. So like I said, Robin comes with 2 weapons, and he comes with this cool face mask. I guess that's to protect him from poisonous plants. There you go. That's pretty cool looking. This is the what I assume is the utility gauntlet, and it just looks like some kind of blaster, or maybe he could use it to, if you have like these blades on the side, maybe he could use it to like cut through the brush and all that kind of stuff. And luckily, you know, these weapons just fit in his hand really nice. They don't like fall out or anything like that. They're not too loose. And then you have this thing, and I'll take that out of that hand. All right, this is the battle staff, and let's see here. All right, there are different functions for this staff, and even shows on like the card that he could hold it in different ways. Like, he could hold it from here and use it as a blaster. He could hold it from here, and it could be kind of like a, almost like a walking stick. He can hold it, you know, like here, and he can hit people with it. Like, apparently it's a blaster. It's kind of like, you can possibly use it as like a spear. You could also use it as like a hook. So this thing apparently just, it does everything. It's kind of funny though when you put like both of these guns in his hands, because they're so large compared to Robin. It's like this one especially is taller than him. So, you know, just him holding this giant gun, it just seems a little silly. As I mentioned before, they did a really good job of keeping the proportions across this line. Like, you know, Robin's body here looks very similar to Robin's body there. And, you know, it looks a little different from Batman. So that's good. But like I said, you know, Robin's got this size of a head here. And then if you look at this one, when you take the mask off, it is a little smaller, a little skinnier. If you want to see how all the good guys scale in this line, well, here you go. You can see that it almost looks like Batgirl is actually a little taller than Robin. But at least Robin he's shorter than Batman. I guess Batgirl's taller than him. But yeah, they did a pretty decent job with the scale in this line. Here you can see how Robin scales with all the villains in this line. Obviously, he's tiny and he's going to get destroyed. Up next, here's Underwater Assault Batman. An army of demolition experts has taken control of Gotham Harbor, threatening to destroy it if their demands are not met. In order to meet the challenge, Batman's responsive camouflage technology reacts to convert his neural suit into a mana cape that doubles as a water sled. Now, Batman speeds below the surface as an underwater warrior, wielding a massive sea claw in his hand, ready to undo whatever horrific dangers may surface. I guess there's a little bit of a theme with this wave, with Robin and now Batman. They're both using camouflage technology. Kind of like in Series 2 where you had Bat Attack Batman and what's the Panther Catwoman, where they're both wearing robots that turn into animal robots. So, all right, that's cool. So, I'm excited to talk about this guy because I always thought this guy looked cool. I didn't get this guy until last year. This was the last Legends of the Dark Knight toy that I actually bought because I was looking for a really long time, trying to get a good price on a mint on card version of him. And for whatever reason, he was just kind of more pricey than a lot of the other Legends of the Dark Knight figures. And eventually I was able to get him for like $10 plus shipping. So it all worked out. So before I talk about like his accessories and everything like that, I just wanted to talk about how awesome the detail is on this guy. Like, look at his chest here. It actually looks like there's shells on top of his chest plate and like his ribs. And there's just all these extra lines. Like even his shoulders look almost like coral. And you have the fin on the back of him. You have seashells here on the back. You have all these fins up and down his legs. The skin on, well, the blue on his pants here looks almost kind of like fish scales or fish skin. I don't know. This thing is a very cool looking Batman, and I like how he's got the little like his little respirator or something like that, so he can breathe underwater. And he's got like a little Optimus Prime symbol in the middle of his forehead. No, it's not an Optimus Prime symbol, but it looks kind of similar. And just the colors, how you have kind of like a tie-dye effect on the blues. I don't know. This one looks really awesome. Like, this is one of the coolest Legends of the Dark Knight Batman variant figures. I kind of think that they should have included Killer Croc in this line, not only because I love Killer Croc, but because he's kind of like a water enemy. Like, he'd be somebody that Batman would have to go, underwater in the sewers or something like that to fight. I don't know. Somehow, to me, that makes sense. So unfortunately, you don't have any villains really included in this line that kind of matched his water theme. Another cool thing too that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the details, how you have the regular blades on this side, and then you kind of have like an extra fin on that side. And even the blades, they made it look more of like a fish. So that's cool. So you have this giant claw, and it's not the best looking weapon. It's kind of huge. Just attaches to the front of him. You could also take that off there and plug it onto the back here. I don't know if it's supposed to do anything like that when it's attached to the back of them. So you have the Manicape, and on one side it just looks kind of like a texture. He's supposed to stand on it like this, and up here you can see that it has like jets so that it will like push him through the top, I guess the top of the water. On the bottom here you kind of have blades or like fans. I guess it's kind of like a hover thing. And just cool circuitry and stuff like that around. Putting the Manicape on him is very simple. You just push up and push down like that, and you're good to go. And then you just put this thing on here. And, like I said, you can do different things with this. So you can put it on his back. Oh, that fell off. So he could pretend that he's swimming with that. Come on, Batman. Get the heck in there. So swimming, or maybe even he could maybe even fly if he wanted to. There's pegs on the bottom, so you can actually stick his feet on there and pretend that he's water skiing. And you could plug that claw in the front there. The package also has a picture with him holding on it like this, so I guess you could pretend that this thing is pulling him through the water. I don't know. That's not as cool as like surfing on it or flying with it on your back. And that is Underwater Assault Batman. Now, I think like some of the Manicape stuff, just isn't the coolest, but just having him stand there with the Manicape on his back like this, and you can see all that texture on the front of him, like, he looks like an awesome Batman. Like, that is really cool looking. Here's something really interesting, too, that I found out last year when I was trying to buy this guy. There exists an Indian knockoff of this figure, and it looks like he has brighter colors. I don't have one in hand because they've become a little more scarce than they used to be, but it's just kind of kind of funny that out of all these toys, these Batman toys, like that is one of them that has appeared as an Indian knockoff. I get maybe it is an official Indian toy. I don't know, but I've never heard of the company that produces it. And now here we are, the main event, Man-Bat. Man, this guy looks awesome. As a zoologist and genetic researcher, Kurt Langstrom was at the head of his profession. His major research was on the sensory operations of bats. Hoping to improve his own senses, he tested an experimental serum comprised of bat genetic material on himself. The result was horrifying. Dr. Langstrom became a giant beast, half man, half bat. Now, his savage rage drives him to commit unspeakable acts of crime. Man-Bat will stop at nothing to destroy his nemesis, the Batman. This Man-Bat is amazing, and I think one of the coolest things about him is that his suit is not stylized. It's not like a crazy 90s design like some of the Batman figures in this line. It's just a regular Man-Bat figure. He's got regular clothes on, and he's just turned into Man-Bat. So this can actually work in whatever display you want to put him in, as far as I'm concerned. If he can fit in with the toy line you want to stick him with, he's good. When this toy came out, I remember Wizard and Toy Fair making such a big deal about him because his wingspan is 15 inches wide. And I also remember reading in one of the magazines about how you have the name tag on his shirt that says Dr. Langstrom. I think there's actual words where that blueprint is, but I can't read it anymore because I'm going blind as a bat. He's just a sight to behold, and he's just gigantic. Look at him. He's got a ton of detail, not necessarily texture, but you got some of that. You got some hair in certain spots, and you just have a lot of very detailed muscles. His head looks great, and you just have this gigantic 15-inch wingspan. Can you imagine in 1997 you would have only paid $8 or $9 for this guy? Scarecrow's a pretty tall guy. Look at that. So you do get some more extra points of articulation with him. All these other figures, they only have a neck joint, a shoulder joint that rotates on one axis, and you have a hip joint. This guy has the neck, you have the hips, and then now with the shoulders, you actually have kind of like a ball joint. It's still a little limited on how far you can actually rotate it, but it is more of a ball joint that you can turn it in different directions. And at the elbow here, or the lower bicep, you have a cut, so you can actually rotate that around, and you have regular elbow joints. So, you can get him into some pretty nice poses. And, some things are a little bit of a pain, like trying to get him to actually stand up with the wings. Sometimes you have to put the wings down on the surface to support him so that he doesn't fall over. And then another thing, too, which is kind of a little bit of annoying with him, is his legs are spread so far out that after a while, they will become even more warped. So, after a while, he kind of has an even harder time standing. I don't know why they made these legs so extremely spread out. Another negative thing I have to say about this guy, even though I think he's great, is that even though he has ball-jointed shoulders, he still doesn't really stretch out his wings as far as you would want them to. If you have it pointing downwards, you can kind of get him to stretch out pretty far that way. But as soon as you start bringing it up towards his chest, you can't rotate them out any further than this, which kind of stinks. And as you go up, you kind of have the same things if you were pointing the arms down, but I don't know. It still looks cool. He still looks like he's gonna get you, but I don't know. I feel like I wish he had a little more movement or something. Here's a close look at him, and look at all the cool detail in his face. He just looks scary. He looks like he would, shred Batman to pieces if he could. You just have a lot of cool detail in here. I like how they did the ripped shirt. That looks pretty neat. Although this ripped shirt is kind of weird because it wouldn't, stick to your body like this if it was ripped like that. You got veins in the skin of the wings and just little tiny hairs. And I don't know. It's just a very, very cool looking figure. And the muscles are gigantic. I don't know. This guy is really awesome. Like this is definitely one of my favorite in this line. He's definitely a cool figure that you should pick up if you don't have him. While I put out Batman and Robin here to show you how they scale with Man-Bat, I'll tell you my Man-Bat story. Now, Man-Bat came out in the middle of 1997, somewhere around there. And as I said in my Series 2 video, I never found any Series 2 figures anywhere. But I would see Toy Fair magazine, and Series 2 would be in them, and Wave 3 or Series 3 would be in there. So you'd see Man-Bat and Penguin and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I'd look in Walmart, I never found them. And then eventually I went into KB, and I found Series 3, and I was like, holy smokes, like, you know, these guys look awesome, right? So, you know, I didn't have any extra money at the time because I was in 8th grade. And, you know, I was spending all my money on CDs and stuff like that, right? So, you're starting to get into, like, November now, right? And, you know, like I said, I didn't have any money. And eventually my parents are like, oh, you know, you gotta write out your Christmas list for Santa Claus, right? So I was like, yeah, Santa can get me Man-Bat, right? And so I wrote on my list of stuff that I wanted, you know, CDs, drum set, Man-Bat from Legends of the Dark Knight. And like I was looking forward to getting them, and on Christmas morning, I did not get Man-Bat. But my brother did, who didn't ask for him. So that's my Legends of the Dark Knight Man-Bat story. And then eventually I got him once I got into college, and you know, that was like 4 years later. But I was, you know, I went to art school, and I was like, oh, I need to collect all those toys I used to love. And he was like one of the first ones I picked up off of eBay, mint on card. As you can see, Man-Bat and Penguin fit in perfectly with the rest of Batman's Rogues Gallery in this Legends of the Dark Knight series. You know, what I think is really cool is that each villain is very unique, and each design is very specific or personalized to who they are. You know, like they all have their own different things going on, but for whatever reason, they all mesh and work together well. Like they all look like they fit in, even though Scarecrow is highly detailed. Like there's tons of scrapes and cross-hatching and stuff all over him. And then you'll have somebody like Bane here who is very smooth and, you know, is just kind of like wearing clothes, or Joker with his giant suit, or Clayface with all his very gross kind of like gunky detail. They all fit perfectly, just like, you know, Batman's Rogues Gallery does in pretty much every Batman storyline. Like, he has one of the best Rogues Gallery of all time. They work great together. And that is Series 3. So tune in next time when I'll talk about Series 4 and wrap up this whole review series on Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. I didn't even know that Series 4 came out when I was younger. I stopped reading Toy Fair and Wizard not long after Series 3 was announced, and then I saw them in stores and spent most of my time buying CDs and playing the drums and trying to be in bands and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I went to college that, you know, I decided to look into all these old toys that I used to love and cartoons and stuff and learn about them. And, you know, when I would Google search Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, you'd find checklists and you'd be like, holy smokes, there was a Series 4 with Clayface and he looks awesome, and like a lava suit Batman and more. Like I was stupefied and flabbergasted. So next time I'll talk about them and give them their due. So see you next time, and remember to tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel.